You see, Peter sets us up for our second word. He says, church people are hope people. And hope people, you should get ready because there's action to take. Gird up the loins of your mind because there's something that you will want to do when you fully understand the hope that you have. And that is to be holy people. Now, at first, that's overwhelming because, especially for those of you who have unchurched friends, because they probably have said something in and around you, or maybe you've seen them say it to someone else, like, oh, they're holier than thou, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, they're so holy, they're just gonna get it right, That's what they say. And so we don't want to be known as holy people. That's not what we want to be. We don't want to be that. But here's the problem. They've got a distorted view of what holy is. Now, it ain't their fault. It's church people's fault why they think what holy is supposed to be. And that's why church people, we want to skip to holy people before we've dealt with hope people. Because the truth is, you can be holy people easy. You become very self-righteous because you create a checkbox, you go through them, and now look at me, I'm holy. But the truth is, if you are hope people first, there's never a moment where you put your arms out and say, I am anything, because we are still holding on to hope, saying, here's the deal. I'm trying to be a holy person, but the truth is, I'm a hope person first. I can't do anything apart from this hope. I can't become anyone apart from this hope. And so I've been invited to be holy, but it's only because of the hope that I have the opportunity to even entertain the possibility that holy might be attached to anything I'm associated with. You see, let's define holy the way Peter, the way the biblical authors would define holy. Holy is this: it's set apart for God's purposes. And so we're invited. He says, be holy because I'm holy. Be set apart for my purpose. In other words, join me in the mission to redeem the world. I want to set you apart, you uniquely, who you are, just the way that you've been put together, your experience, your baggage, your trauma, all those things, bring it together. I want to use it all. There's the heart of God in that phrase. He says, be holy because I want you to be like me. That's such father figure language. When they look at their child and says, I just want to teach you what I've learned because I want you to know what I know. I want you I want you to value what I value. The truth is, holiness is relational. It's not transactional, which is the way the world sees it. Like, oh, holiness is a list of things. No, holiness only happens because God allows it. God knows us and invites us to be like him, which is holy. Holiness is relational. We are known by God. Our potential is known by God. Our future is known by God. And so we are invited then to begin to become like his son Jesus. And when we understand hope, that the hope we have allows us to have that relationship that then leads us to, there's something for us to do about the hope we have, which is to be holy. It allows us then to get to this place that holiness is about progress, not perfection. It's about progress. Because think about it. Again, this runs through the entirety of 1 Peter. It's about a father who knows and loves perfectly, right? So even better than the best of our earthly fathers, right? This father gets it right every time, right? Never makes a mistake. It's about him teaching his kids how to be like him. And so there's no expectation of any father that when they have a child, that immediately they will act and be able to do all the things that he can do. There is no one has that expectation. But they understand you've got to grow up into that it takes time, it takes progress. It's one step at a time. God is holy. God's inviting us to be like him, to be holy. You see, holiness isn't about only the inside. It's about the outcomes of the inside work. And so when we embrace hope and we begin to ask the question, okay, how do we become holy? Not holier than thou, but actually holy. How do we become like Jesus? There's a big church word, the theological word that encompasses all this. It's called sanctification. It's hey, how do we move who we are into who God really wants us to be? And that process of being sanctified happens through the Spirit of God. But it's not instantaneous. This doesn't happen overnight. This is a snap your fingers, and all of a sudden I saw the light, and now I'm just like Jesus. It takes time. Holy people are always in progress. Now here's the thing, though, and this is huge. We can't miss this. Can't miss it. When we have hope, real hope, leads to a desire to be like Jesus because of how great the hope is. That's called we want to be holy. The very first result of that desire in us is what he's about to talk about, which is wild. Like you might think, like as your mind is racing, what could the first desire of our heart be when we understand hope, we desire to be like Jesus or to be holy? What would the first desire to be? He's about to tell us. And I would imagine for most people, this would not be what you would say is the very first result. I'll read it in 1 Peter 1:22. It says, now that you have purified yourselves by obeying the truth, so that you have sincere love for each other, love one another deeply from the heart. Like, hold on. Whoa. Peter, we were just talking about a hope that's mine, being holy, this is all, and you're saying now that we've purified ourselves, that's what this idea is of becoming holy, being like Jesus, there's a process. Now that that's taking place, the very first thing that we should be seeing or thinking about is sincere love for one another and loving deeply from our heart. What? But it makes sense. It makes sense. It makes sense that holiness is relational between us and God, and that it's only the only reason we would desire to be like Jesus or to be holy is because of the hope that we have. That when we understand hope, we say, man, this hope is so good. I want to be like Jesus. That process is called, we're going to become holy. We're going to take one step after another. And then from that, as soon as we have that relationship with God, the very first thing that relationship impacts is the relationship with everybody else. Which then makes sense. Okay, when I look at it that way, I got you, Peter. There's something that happened in me that then happens with me and God that then affects every other person I walk around with in my everyday life. That makes perfect sense. Now, what I love is that he uses the word sincere. Man, it's my hope. It is my hope, and I know, I get it. Some of you invite family to our church, and it's borderline embarrassing depending on what church they've come through, that when you just avoid, like, you're like, well, I'm not going to introduce him as our pastor because I get it, but right, because I just don't fit the bill for a lot of things that's from other visiting church kind of things. But it is my hope that when I am dead and gone, that 99% of the people that are a part of my life would say, well, at least we know he's genuine, right? Like, that's it. And that's when I see this here, that it's a big deal for everybody, that we're just who we are. Now, not unapologetically wrong in who we are, not unapologetically sinful, but we're just honest. Like, what you see is what you get. We're not going to pretend to be Christians. We're just going to be who we are. We're going to be quick to acknowledge when we didn't get it right. We're going to be quick to apologize as fast as we can get the words out of our mouths. But the rest of the time, we're trying to follow Jesus. We're just who we are. And I love that he says, hey, I want you to have sincere love for each other. Like legitimate, genuine, authentic, no fakes, no dupes, absolutely legit love for one another. And then he gives us this incredible descriptor. He says, I want you to love one another deeply. Now, that's good. Deeply helps us. It helps us understand this is not just a moment, right? But we're going to dig in. Now, here's the great thing, though. When we do some word study around this deeply word, it gives us a little more insight when we recognize that deeply also is translated as constantly. In other words, it's not just about a moment where we go deep or a moment that we love someone with some really big love action, but that it's a constant, that there's a timetable to it. When does the timetable end? It doesn't. It's constant. So he's saying, look, God is going to interject himself into who you are, and that relationship will never end. And he's asking us then to look at the relationships outside of us and say, man, the people we're going to invest in, let's keep doing it over and over and over again. Genuinely, not just one moment of extreme kindness, but I am constantly going to partner with you as we walk forward in life. And that happens when we have an incredible view of hope and a sincere desire to be like Jesus, to be holy. And that relationship then filters into the relationships we have with one another, not in a moment in time, but an ongoing process that says, man, the way God loves me, he's teaching me to love others, which is constant and deep. And then he gives us the best warning we could be given. And we might want to end right at the bow of like, man, this is good. Hope. To holy, to a relation, like this is making sense. But he gives us a warning, and I would say we can't move on, we can't tie a bow on this without reading the warning that he gives. Because I think this is where we go wrong. 1 Peter 2:1, he says, therefore, anytime we see therefore, right, it's because of what I just said before this is what I want you to do. Therefore, rid yourselves of all malice, all deceit, hypocrisy, envy, slander of every kind. This is huge. This is huge. Think about it. The first tangible evidence we have from our honest understanding of hope, which leads to a true desire to be like Jesus or be holy, the first tangible evidence we have is then, the evidence is the relationships we have with other people. And he says, hey, I want you to be careful. And he gives us a list of things we should rid ourselves from. All of them are relationship killers. All of them are relationship killers. In other words, Peter knows that if we don't address the relationship killers in our life, if the relationships are the fruit of our hope and our holiness, if we kill the fruit, there's a good chance we'll just give up on the whole tree. And so he says, hey, look, here's the deal. We can't kill the fruit. Let me just let you in on a secret. You need to be aware Satan is not going after the roots of the tree. He would just assume you think that tree's dead by killing the fruit. So if I kill the fruit, you'll just move on to something else. You'll move on to something else. So he says, hey, here's the deal. There are relationship killers in your life. And you need to make sure that you are very aware that these relationship killers, even though you got a lot of hope and you got a lot of desire to be holy, to be like Jesus, and you got some relationships, the truth is, if you're not careful, these will kill those relationships, and your assumption is going to be, well, good, what good was that holiness and hope? He says, if you are a guy that walks around, a girl that walks around, and people think, so deceitful. Well, guess how your relationships are going to, you don't have any. You don't have any deep relationships. Maybe they're surface level and they're keeping you at arm's length because there's no chance I'm giving you a shot again. If you're someone who is thought of as envious, or someone who always, on purpose, is saying one thing and doing another because you're pretending to be someone you're not. If slander is a word that comes to mind when people think of you. What are the chances you have any type of deep, lasting relationships? None. None. So he gives us some instruction that says, hey, protect the fruit of your hope and your holy.